Check 1, 2.
Go! Curious about real estate?
Yes!
Then you've come to the right place. Get the knowledge you need. Get over the fear and get started. This is the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show with your host, Michael Quarles.
Hello, everybody. Michael Quarles with podcast number 144. It's a scenario question sent in by an investor. And remember, if you have a question, send it to support@bsffacademy.com. One more time, support@bsffacademy.com. Here we go. Question number one, or scenario question number one. I have a property under contract. Sales agreement was sent out and was returned authorized. Congratulations. But the seller suddenly disappeared. Ouch. One of the numbers has been disconnected. The other rings with no voicemail. I'm not receiving any email replies and feel like I've exhausted my options. What do you do in this scenario? Move on, cloud title, because you have it under contract. What do you do? Well, we had a similar situation not too long ago where we had a house that we were buying, and the seller just stopped communicating with us. And we found out the reason that they stopped communicating with us, literally just stopped, was that there was an issue on their side and they were too embarrassed to tell us that they had done something and they thought that we didn't want to fall forward. So they just stopped answering our phone calls. How we got a hold of them was, lo and behold, we called them from a phone number they didn't recognize and they picked up, kind of thing. So keep trying. Send them a certified letter, whatever you have to do, kind of stuff. You know, there are attorney services in pretty much in every city. And what I mean by an attorney service, someone that will go out and knock on the door for you, someone like a process server. You know, $75, you can go knock on the door and ask someone to call you. I mean, that seems like it's worth it to me, kind of stuff. But in our case, the property management company that they were using to collect rent or rent their property out had entered into a 1-year lease agreement without them realizing it, thus making our contract with them very hard for them to honor, since we require that the property be vacant prior to close. From our perspective, it worked out really well because we could get seller financing at that point for the period of time, so it worked out well. But from their perspective, they didn't think that they had the ability anymore to sell. In fact, they did, so that they were holding off on calling us. So keep trying. Like I said, call them from a phone number they don't know. Call them in the evenings, not too late. Remember, keep in mind, if it's out of town, you have to be respectful of time zones. But if it's in your city locally, call them at 9 o'clock at night, as early as 9 o'clock in the morning, and 7 days a week. Send an attorney service out to ask them, go knock on their door, whatever you need to do. You know, you got to get a hold of them. And some people, they actually start leaving, which isn't uncommon. Once they think that they have a house sold, they just start doing stuff, which is why we ask them, you know, for all the different types of phone numbers, and then we request that they don't turn off all the utilities to the property until we actually give them our money, which is always the thing I say is, until you get my money, don't assume your property is sold just because we have a close date and what have you. Keep everything on, keep everything in your name, keep everything functional until you receive my money. That is the indication that you just sold your property. Until then, keep it as normal. But yeah, again, I'm going to fall back to a legal service, not a legal service to cloud title. I think, you know, you can't lose what you don't have. It's an expression I live by. So just because you thought you had a contract to buy something doesn't mean, in fact, you have a contract to buy something. So don't go, you can't cloud title anyway. I mean, you have to refile a list pendings. What is that going to cost you? You know, $3,000 or $4,000, and you're going to, you know, force someone, and you're going to spend the money on attorney's fees that is greater than the profit potential of the property to cause someone to sell something to you. Yes, you can cause someone to sell something to you, but at the profit margins that we're speaking to, you know, the $30,000 or $45,000 profit margin, it's not cost effective. If I was doing like 100 units or, you know, $1 billion building, of course I would have attorneys involved if my seller went sideways. But we're not in that arena here, so you can't cloud title.
Thanks for listening to Buy, Sell, Fix, Flip. We'll be right back. Are you running out of leads? It's time you tried Yellow Letters at yellowletters.com. Get motivated seller leads through yellow letters, postcards, zip letters, typed professional letters, greeting cards, door hangers, and business cards. Yellow Letters is a full-service marketing company created with your success in mind. Get the personal attention you need to get your direct mail campaign started and get in touch at yellowletters.com.
And we are back in 3, 2, 1.
Moving on, I think, is not necessarily the position you should take. You should move on only in mind that, maybe you're not going to get the deal, go find another one, but you always should be going and finding another one anyway. So, we have that 80-20 rule. Sometimes that means 20% of the deals we find fall out of escrow. Sometimes that means 80% of the deals we find fall out of escrow. So you always have the rule of thumb that you're going to lose some anyway. So don't move on too soon. Do some due diligence. Make sure you actually have a seller and that they're alive and what have you. So, Google his name in the local marketplace. Maybe he died over the weekend. Unfortunately, that could happen. Probably wouldn't have disconnected his phone if he died, but you never know. And again, I'm going to fall to the attorney service in the local marketplace, get someone to go knock on the door and hand them a letter to give you a phone call about the property that's under contract. Other than that, and one of the other things, what that happens a lot in our business, because we don't show necessarily the professionalism that we intend to show, is that the seller doesn't know their house is sold. Yes, I know that they sign an agreement and a purchase agreement, and that should indicate to them that they have sold their property. But because we didn't show them professionalism to a point that solves for that interpretation of being sold, they may have just talked to another investor who offered you more money, and they're going to trap the deal that way. And for that, I carry just a baseball bat. I mean, you know what? No, I'm not going to go over to the seller and hit him over the head with a baseball bat. That's not what I mean. But it's a baseball bat mentality. I'm not going to allow someone to interfere in my opportunity to buy a house, which is why I have in my contracts the paragraph that says if you sell it to someone else, you don't want to sell it to me. You can do anything you want as long as you pay me 25% of the contractual price or $50,000, whichever is greater. So I give them the opportunity to do something else, but I'm not going to hit them with my baseball bat necessarily. I do believe, though, that if you have an investor in your local marketplace that's interfering with your deals, that maybe you should have a conversation with them that's a little bit more stern than a handshake, that someone needs to know that they're not going to be able to do that to you too often, and there is legal ramifications to that. There are laws regarding interfering with a contract, and then someone's intentionally doing that to you over and over and over again, then I would absolutely get my attorney involved in that and make an example out of that person if that needed to be done. But move forward. This when you lose a deal or a deal goes sideways or it falls out because of the 80-20 rule, just realize that's just part of it's the game that we play. And it's not really a game. I don't mean it like a baseball or football. And wasn't football fun yesterday? Oh my goodness, my team won finally. Not that they finally won, but they won finally. I didn't say that right. They were behind and they came back to win. I'm not going to tell you who my team was, but I wear an orange jersey on Sunday. Anyway, and I was going to paint my Bentley orange, but that's a completely different story. They actually have an orange color you could actually paint the Bentley, but I went with red instead. Red's a sexier color than orange, and so I need all the help I can get, I guess. So anyway, fall forward. Don't make it your last deal. Don't rely on a single deal to make all your money. This business is about multiple deals. It's about how many deals you do in a year, how many deals you do in a lifetime, and fall forward. Until tomorrow, guys. It was fun. Hope you guys enjoyed the weekend. Enjoy the week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Michael Quarles Real Estate Show. Get more info and stay in touch at michaelquarles.com.